All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about a book that was, well, one of the most explosive and influential books of the last 300 years. I'm talking about Jean-Jacques Rousseau's The Social Contract. Seriously, the ideas in this thing helped topple monarchies and build entire nations. So let's get into the big puzzle Rousseau was trying to solve. I mean, he looked at the world and asked this huge question that we're still asking today, right? How can we all live together with governments and laws and all that, but still be free, like truly free? So picture this. It's 1762, and this book just drops. And when I say it's a bombshell, I mean it was a political bombshell. In it, Rousseau lays out this whole new way of thinking about how to build a society, a way that he thought could finally mesh with the kind of individual freedom everyone is born with. And right out of the gate, Rousseau just goes for it. He attacks this idea that everyone just accepted back then, that might makes right, that a king with a big army is automatically a just ruler. Rousseau's like, nope. He argues that force does not create right. The whole point is that real authority can't just be about threatening people. It has to be built on something totally different. And that was the massive problem he was trying to crack. I mean, you have to remember, this was a world of kings and emperors who all said, hey, God put me in charge. So the question was, how on earth do you create a government that people actually choose to obey? A government they see as legitimate, as theirs? So what was his solution? Well, Rousseau's idea was, honestly, it was completely radical. It just flew in the face of centuries of tradition. He basically wanted to take the whole power structure and just flip it on its head. Okay, so first thing he does, he just tosses out the whole divine right of kings idea. The belief that God handpicks a king or a royal family to rule over everybody. Rousseau was like, absolutely not. That is not a legitimate way to get power. Instead, he comes up with this, the social contract. The idea is that the only real legitimate power comes from the people themselves. It's created when free individuals all agree to come together and form a community. So power doesn't trickle down from God to a king. Nope, it rises up from the people. And this really gets to the heart of what he believed. He said your freedom is inalienable. That's a fancy word, but it just means it's a core part of you. You can't sell it, you can't give it away. You can't just sign over your freedom to a ruler, because if you did, you'd basically be giving up what makes you human. Okay, but that brings up a pretty obvious question, right? How do you get millions of people to rule themselves without everything just ascending into total chaos? And this is where Rousseau's most famous and probably most controversial idea comes in. He called it the general will. Now, it's really important to get this right. This is not just adding up what every single person wants for themselves. It's not just a popularity contest. No, the general will is the collective desire for what's best for the entire community. It's about what's good for us, not just what's good for me. Now, for this to actually work, Rousseau said there have to be some strict rules. He said the general will has to come from all the people, and any laws it makes have to apply to all the people, equally. No exceptions, no special treatment for anybody. For him, you just couldn't have real freedom if you didn't have that bedrock of equality. And here's the real mind bender. When you obey a law that you, as a member of the people, helped create for the common good, you're not losing your freedom. Rousseau says you're actually achieving it. Why? Because you're only obeying yourself. You're following a rule you helped write. All right, so the people make the laws. Great. But who actually carries them out? Who enforces them? This was a huge deal for Rousseau. He was super clear that you had to keep these two jobs completely separate. Otherwise, you're just asking for corruption and tyranny. So he drew this really firm line in the sand. On one side, you have the sovereign. Now that's his word for all the people acting as one single body. Their only job? To make the general laws. On the other side, you have the government, which is the executive branch. Think of them as the machinery that just applies those laws to specific situations. They enforce the rules, they don't get to write them. And that separation was absolutely key, right? It stops the enforcers from making up self-serving rules. What's kind of surprising, though, is that Rousseau didn't say there was one single best form of government. He actually argued that the best setup really depends on the size of the country. So for a tiny city-state, a democracy where lots of citizens are involved in the day-to-day could work. For a medium-sized state, an aristocracy, ruled by a few. And for a huge state, he thought a monarchy, with just one person in charge of execution, was probably the most efficient. But, and this is a huge but, even in that monarchy, the king is just an employee. He's an administrator who still has to follow the laws made by the people. So, as you can probably guess, throwing an idea like this out into the world, it was like lighting a match in a room full of gunpowder. The reaction from the people in charge was swift, and it was not friendly. Almost immediately, the book was banned in France and in his hometown of Geneva. They even issued a warrant for his arrest. Rousseau literally had to run for his life. And you can see why, right? The kings and nobles saw this book for exactly what it was, a direct threat to their entire way of life. But, you can't unring that bell. The ideas were out there. And get this, even Voltaire, who was a huge philosophical rival of Rousseau and disagreed with him on tons of stuff, even he defended the book from the censors. He basically said, if you have to burn a book, it means you don't have a good enough argument to beat it. And the impact on other major thinkers was just massive. The philosopher Immanuel Kant, we're talking about a giant of Western thought. He gave Rousseau credit for completely changing how he saw the world. Kant said that reading Rousseau taught him to honor all human beings, not just the smart, educated ones. And this wasn't just some academic debate among philosophers. Oh no. You can trace the DNA of this book straight into real-world revolutions. The French Revolution is the big one, of course. Guys like Robespierre treated this book almost like a holy text. But its ideas also made their way across the Atlantic and helped shape the political arguments happening in early America. Which brings us to the big, thorny question that Rousseau's work leaves us with. A question that proves just how powerful these ideas still are. If we're all supposed to be ruled by this general will, well, who gets to decide what it actually is? And what stops the majority from using the general will to crush a minority? That's the puzzle he left for us, and we're still trying to figure it out today.